place of opportunities. If there is any place in this world that you want to come to be able to make it big, or to go after your dreams, it is New York City.
Barbra Streisand. Barbra Streisand. Barbra Streisand. Barbra Streisand. Barbra Streisand. Barbra Streisand. Barbra Streisand.
Everybody loves duck sauce. Is this amazing? Is this amazing?
All right, party people, here we go on a beautiful Tuesday morning here in Milwaukee. I am going to get things rolling. So to kick it off, what do we have coming up this morning? So I want to share a quick little intro for you before we get to our guest speaker. Then I'm going to break down the market stats as we've done every week. But this week, I'm going to do it by price point to give you a little bit of an insight between three different price segments to help both your buyers and your sellers. Brian Klut's going to jump on and give us a mortgage and rates industry insight. And here we go. We got KW Tech updates coming, structure and accountability through Amanda Schroeder, and some training and education, and we will be wrapping up our morning. So before we kick it off, we have a famous friend amongst our group, and I wanted to give you a little bit of, I want to share with you what went on within the marketplace this past weekend, because she did a great job representing not only JSG, but representing KW as a whole. So here I want to kick this off with a little Fox News segment.
That's total more than 45,000.
Buying a home can be one of the biggest decisions we make in our life, a decision made even more complicated if you're shopping during a pandemic. Ashley Sears joining us live tonight to tell us how the real estate industry is adapting to the coronavirus.
Ted, it is an interesting time if you are a buyer or a seller. The coronavirus is making changes to the housing market, but it's not stopping people from buying or selling homes.
I really kind of dodged the bullet.
Molly Allen never expected to sell her home during a pandemic. Shortly after putting her Fox Point house on the market in mid-March, it sold.
If we had waited another week or two, it probably would have been a whole different story.
She was then tasked with buying.
Because nobody was showing houses and we didn't know what the market was going to look like. And I really had nowhere, I didn't even know where I wanted to end up.
Gone are the days of open houses. Many showings are now virtual. But real estate agent Janine Werner says don't let it scare you away.
We're seeing less inventory, but we're still seeing competitive offers.
Werner says sellers might be a little less eager to put their homes on the market, but potential buyers are taking advantage of low interest rates. There are changes for everyone. Buyers are asked to wear gloves and masks, sellers the way they present their homes.
We always ask, make sure all the lights are on, the doors are open, so there's less interaction, less touching when we go in to see a property.
For Alan, buying her new house wasn't a problem. She says trust is key to making the process safe.
Having an agent that you feel comfortable with and trust, that'll get you where you need to go.
Werner says if you are a buyer, you want to get pre-qualified first. They are only doing showings with those who are. She says the market is still competitive with a smaller batch of homes for sale. Reporting live in Milwaukee, Ashley Sears, Fox 6 News.
And you can't beat the interest rate. All right, Ashley, thank you.
J-Dubs, congrats on the Sunday night news segment. Thank you for representing JSG and KW at such a high level on the local news. So now we are going to turn it over to a good friend of mine, James Shaw. For those of you who have had the chance to jump onto the Shift National Shift Book Club series, James leads this every single morning and has provided some great insight, both mentally, personally, professionally, and everything that we have to deal with right now during these times. And so I've invited him on to this morning's meeting to kind of lead a mastermind with us to start. So James, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be in Milwaukee. I'm sorry about the NBA season.
We'll have many more, hopefully have many more opportunities to bring a championship back to Milwaukee.
I hope so. This is going to be an exciting year for you. I'm a Pacers fan originally, and we can't beat you except the one time. I was excited for something different this year, so who knows?
Cool. So I'll just jump right into it. And guys, what this is really going to be a mastermind with James. What do we have on our minds? How can he help us lead us through the Shift book and just kind of give us some insights as to what's going on? So James, I'll kind of kick it off. We as a group in total have discussed a lot around how do you show homes, how do you lead your buyers, what does this look like, including many different lead generation tactics. But one of the things I think you could kind of dive into that this group I know would be interested in talking about is just finances, right? And there's a big theme right now, I think across KW, is how do you live on less? You know, the impact of that is where do you cut, but also where do you lean into and invest within your business?
Well, it's a great question. And I think the reason why this is important is because Gary said he's doing that. And, I think if we add up the net worth of everybody on this call, the 100 people on this call, Gary probably still has a higher net worth. And when Gary Keller says he's cutting his expenses, he's canceling his vacations, he's looking at all that stuff, that means we have a responsibility to as well. And on the call this morning, 7 Central Time, that I'm sure a couple of you from your office were on, that I do every day in the Pivot Shift Ahead group, I talked about kind of looking at this from a baseball perspective. I know you guys have the Brewers there, and you look at a baseball perspective, you have the minor leagues before you get to the majors, which is single A, double A, and triple A, right? And single A is, this happened, right? So you got to get through that, and then you get promoted to double A. Double A is where you go, all right, we have to just, know that this is where we are. It's an acceptance is the first A. We accept that this is the situation we're in. And then the second A in double A is you adjust. So accept and adjust. Well, one of the things you've got to adjust are your finances. That's an absolute, because when you move up to AAA, in AAA, you have attitude, action, and accounting. And accounting is a big deal for us because we've got to learn to live on less right now. While it sounds like that your market's still good and things are selling and stuff's coming in and going on the market, look, Gary's the one who said we're going to make less money this year. So we've got to adjust our accounting to match. And there's a reason why it's the second chapter in the Shift book is the expense chapter, because sometimes we're making money in spite of the mistakes. So I don't know if you've had people in your market center or not who've come to you and said, hey, I've cut, $800, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 from my budget. And most of the stuff has been junk, right? I mean, that's a lot of it. When you go in and look, you go, I got a bunch of stuff in there. I don't even know what it is. Have you heard anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've got to look at it in 4 buckets, and I'm going to give you the 4 buckets. And this comes from the One Thing. The One Thing posted this on their Instagram over the weekend. So this is not from me. I stole it from them. And oh, I had it right here. Here we go. So these are the 4 categories of expenses that we have. Number 1 is mission critical. Mission critical. This is your mortgage. This is your car payment if you have one, your health insurance. You know, if your kid's in private school, the tuition, you've committed to pay for the school year, mission critical. Number 2, don't want to live without. And from a business standpoint, that's where we've got to go and investigate, is whatever money I'm spending earning its keep? Am I getting a return on this investment that I'm making? And I'm spending $1, am I getting $5 back? Because whoever told you that you have to spend money to make money didn't know what they were talking about. And Gary's the one who said that. You don't have to spend money to make money. When you do spend money, though, you better make sure it is making money. So that's number 2 is I'd like to keep it, I think is what we said, right? Yeah, don't want to do without. Now, on that one, what I'd do is I'd go through and I'd look at it, and then 48 hours later, make a decision, is it earning its keep? Give yourself 2 days. Number 3 is could live without. And number 3 is stuff like Netflix, XM radio. You know, for us, we canceled our XM radio because it was costing me $76 a month. I can live without XM radio. We had it in the 3 cars or whatever. So I turn it off. Guess what? I'm not paying for it anymore. They haven't turned off my radio yet. This was a month ago. So right now it's free. I like free radio, right? So Netflix, we downgraded our package. You know, there's just stuff you look at and go, I could live without that. And quite frankly, anything in that category right now is a privilege, and it has to get cut. You know, if you have Brewers season tickets, I trust that they're doing stuff with you. They did this for me in Tampa Bay with the Rays. Is I've got a 22 game package, and I called them. I said, will you suspend the payments on that until we even know if there's going to be a season? And they said, absolutely. So I'm not paying that right now. And then finally, number 4 is I don't even know what it is. And we found some of those. My wife and I we've cut about $2,000 between business and personal expenses monthly. And a lot of that stuff was $9.99, $12.99. And there were a few things, I think 3 or 4 things we saw that I'm like, I don't know what this is. What is this? And I asked Terry, and she's like, I don't know what it is. It's out. And we all have those. We're in a subscription economy. We have those things. So I think the way you do it is you go pull 6 months to a year of bank statements and 6 months to a year of credit card statements. And you literally go line by line. And what you do is you write a number next to each one of them. You write a number next to each item. 1 is mission critical. 2, don't want to live without. 3, could live without. And 4, don't even know what it is. And if you go through and lay it out like that, I'll tell you, your eyes will be opened to just some waste and then a chance to make money again. You know, my wife and I, we got a $24,000 annual raise just by going in and looking at our expenses.
Cool. Cool. Can you I was writing some notes and I missed when you talked about the baseball analogy, you said the first line is AA, and that was attitude and adjust? So
single A is the first, right? You start in the minor leagues, you start in single A, and single A I always say is, like, wow, this is happening, right? AA, then you get promoted to AA, and AA is acceptance. So accept and adjust. Accept and adjust. You know, we have to accept that this is where we are right now. This is just reality. This is what I call our now normal. It's not a new normal. It's a now normal. And so we have to accept that. And once we accept it, then we can adjust. And then you get promoted to AAA, and AAA is attitude, action, and accounting. Attitude is your mindset right. Get real, get right, right? Get real about what you're thinking, get right about what you're doing. And then action, are you getting to work? And we talked about that on the call today as well. Gary says, look, for as much as knowing what to do, taking action's just as necessary. Once you know, it's not about more knowing. And then accounting is the part we just talked about, which is just checking your expenses.
Sure.
Making sure that every dollar you spend is bringing back its original amount plus a reasonable profit. And if it's not, it's out.
Sure. And where have you, speaking to expenses and things, right? And it's very easy to talk about where do we cut, and kind of segmenting those buckets too. What about areas where you're leaning into, or things where you're seeing, people say, well, I can't live without, and calculating an ROI? What are some of those areas that you look to lean into?
So I get that question a lot, and I appreciate the question. The answer is unique to the individual. And the reason I say the answer is unique to the individual is you have to go into chapter number 4, which is the lead generation chapter. And you go to pages 54 to 57. And so everybody write that down, shift pages 54 to 57. And on shift pages 54 to 57, Gary wants you to go in and look and figure out what lead sources are bringing you leads. So what things are you doing that are bringing you leads? And you go rank them all, just rank them in order. And then Gary always says you double down, right? So you've got to, in a shift, you double down on the lead sources that are working. So for example, if you're farming your neighborhood and you send out, say, a postcard every week, and you go and look, and that's one of your top 5 lead strategies, well, then you would double down on your farm. Like maybe you go from 1 postcard to 2 postcards, right? You've got to double down on the farm. If you are, calling for sale by owners and expireds as part of your strategy, and that's a top 5 lead source for you, and you average 20 of those conversations a week, well, then you're going to double down and get to 40. So it's hard for me to tell people where to go invest their money to get a return without knowing where they're already investing money and getting a return. Now, the easy thing to do would be to start looking at what you can do and leveraging the power of Keller Williams through command on social media, because that is pretty low risk. So if you wanted to go, I've heard as low as 61 cents a lead people are paying on Facebook, and the average is somewhere between $1 to $2. So if you wanted to go throw 30 bucks into that or 60 bucks into that and see what happens, I'd be okay with that. What I wouldn't want to do though is tell someone, hey, go put your money here, because I don't know if that's working for you or not. I want to find out what's working for you. So I know I didn't answer your question, except I kind of did. We've got to figure out what's working for you before I tell you where to go invest dollars. Quite frankly, right now in April, I'd rather you didn't invest dollars, and I'd rather you invest time. I'd rather you invest effort in April and May and June before investing dollars right now. And what I mean by that is, before you think about spending a penny extra, I want to know, have you literally called every single person in your database and in your phone? And until you've done that, you haven't earned the right to spend any more money. And that's probably an unpopular answer. I believe it's the right answer, though, that you've got to call. On the call this morning, I don't know if any of your people were on it, I was pretty clear that it's 40 contacts, guys. It's 40 a day, 20 of those on the phone in the morning. And then in the afternoon or evening, it's 20 of those through Facebook Messenger, text, email, Snapgram, whatever makes you happy. And as long as you're getting your 40 in a day, then you've earned the right maybe to look at spending some more money.
Yeah. Well, and I think you answered the question, because most people think when they invest in something, they automatically go to money, right? But your time is also equal to money. And I think you said it best, is to identify your top lead sources and double down on what those strategies are.
Well, and that's what Gary tells us to do. He says, he's the one that says to go do that. And by the way, you've all been given the gift of time right now. I think you're probably showing fewer homes than you've shown. And I know too, on the other side of my door is my 8-year-old second grader who's in school, right? So I get that all that stuff's going on as well. And you probably have a little bit more time. So let's invest the time and check in on our people.
Sure. Cool. I'm going to open it up. Anybody else have things they want to ask James, or things that are on the top of your head that you'd like some insight on?
This is where we usually have to play bingo. Let me show you. Always in this part of the call, we have to play bingo, where if you have awkward silence, you can circle it, because we usually have awkward silence right here before somebody talks.
I would like to know what number 4 was. I know mission critical, don't wait to live without, but what can't live without, but what
Don't even know what it is.
Say it again.
Don't even know what it is.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we have those expenses, Mary Beth, where you look at them. I found one. So my daughter's in 2nd grade. I found one, something we enrolled her in in Florida we call VPK, voluntary pre-kindergarten. So in her pre-kindergarten, we enrolled her in this thing online to use, and here it is. She's in 2nd grade. We're still paying $14.99 a month for it, and I had to do a password request because we didn't even know what it was, right? So we got to get that junk out of there.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mary Beth. That was a great question. Thanks for asking it. And by the way, I do love connecting with your people, even though I like the Cubs. I like connecting with your people. So I'm going to put my Instagram handle in the chat. So if you want to connect with there, because I'm sold out of Facebook friends, although I'll probably unfriend a person or two today for saying something dumb. So if you want to connect with me there, Instagram would be the spot. And I always love it when you post your ahas or thoughts or lessons. If you tag me on your story, I'll share them with everybody else so they can see them too.
Hey, James, a question came in from the chat group. Your advice on follow-up is, I think, the most important things we often miss.
Okay, Natasha, that's a great question. You know, right now, I think what we have to do is spend some time daily. Again, 40 is the number, 40 people, of checking in with every person right now. We're in a once in a multi-generation event, and we have a responsibility to check in, because I think the message you send when you don't call is that you don't care. My guess would be, Natasha, that your phone is not ringing off the hook of people calling you that are your business partners, people you've done business with, your insurance agent, your banker. You know, I don't think phones are ringing off the hook going, hey, I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. And so what you're learning right now is your value to them. And your value to most of the people you do business with is the money you pay them, not the relationship. Well, if we're in a relationship business, Natasha, then what we have to do first is call every single person. And the conversation we have with every single person right now, every phone number you can come across, you call. And the conversation you have with them will dictate the follow-up. At the longest you're ever going to wait is 90 days. So if you talk to somebody April 21st, May, June, July 21st is when you're going to talk to them again. If you talk to them on April 21st and whatever their needs are, meaning you need to call them before July 21st, then you put it in your system and you call them before July 21st. So, you know, right now is the time to set up that follow-up plan. And the script is very simple. And I've shared this many, many times on the Pivot Shift Ahead page. So if you aren't on that page, I'm going to I'll put it in here. It's facebook.com/groups/shift daily. You got to go join that group. There's 65,000 members, and you've got to get in it too. And we do a call 7 o'clock Central Time every morning. And the script is very, very simple. It's, how are you? How are you doing? How's your family? Is everybody healthy? You know, those types of questions. And the model of this conversation, it follows the 3 C's: care, compassion, common sense. Care, compassion, common sense. Care and compassion. How are you? How's your family? Everybody okay? Is everybody healthy? What can I do for you? How can I help you? Right? These are the questions. The last question you're going to ask them is, what's going on with work? Because right now, every single person on the planet fits in one of 3 spaces if they're a worker, right? So if you're talking to somebody who is in the work environment, they fit in one of 3 spots. Number 1, they're one of the 22 million Americans who's unemployed right now, who's lost their job in the last 4 weeks. Number 2, they're one of the 34% of American workers who are now working from home, which, by the way, is the cap. So the research says that the percentage of Americans who have jobs that can telecommute is 34%. So right now, basically anyone who can work from home is. So that's bucket 2, right? Bucket 1 is they've lost their job or they've been furloughed. Bucket 2, they're working from home. Or bucket 3 is they're essential, which means they risk their health every day to go earn money. Those are the 3 categories of people right now. So of the working population. So if you call and you go, how are you? How are you doing? How's your family? Everybody healthy? Everybody good? Oh, that's great. You're checking in, care and compassion. Then say, well, what's going on with work right now? How's that working out for you? And they're going to tell you, furloughed or unemployed, working from home, or hey, I'm still driving into work every day because we got to work. And here's what happens. When you ask about work, they're going to ask you, well, what's going on with your work? What's happening for you? And that's where the 3rd C comes in. Remember, care, compassion. or the first two C's. Third C is common sense. Common sense says if they ask you about work, you can talk about work when they ask you. And so the way you do that is 3 steps. The first step is you tell them we're still working. In Wisconsin, is real estate considered essential?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you tell them we're still working. In fact, our governor says we're essential because people need shelter. So we're still out working. And then you give them the data from the MLS from the last 24 hours or the last week. And I'm sure this is something that you guys are sharing like on a Facebook page or something with your agents, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you would go in and you'd say, hey, we're still working. You know, the governor said we're essential. Everyone needs shelter. In fact, in the last 24 hours in Milwaukee, there have been 72 new listings. There have been 84 pendings, and there have been 79 closings. So that's the second step, is to give the data. And then the third thing that you would do is then ask for business. And you can do that directly or indirectly. So if you come across somebody who's looking to do anything right now, we're still here. We're happy to help. That's indirect, and that's fine. And thank you. I see all of you, a bunch of you writing this down, and I'm so proud of you. Thank you for doing that, because you'll forget when we get off this call as I'm looking at my screen and you're all writing it down. Thank you. You're smart in Milwaukee. Because honest to goodness, this is the call you make right now. And if you do it, it'll work. So we're essential. We're still working. Here's the data from the last 24 hours. If you come across someone, I'm happy to help. Or you can be more direct. Who have you come across that's looking to do something? We're still happy to help. You know, the listing inventory is even tighter than it's been. And if we put a house on, it gets multiple offers right away. You know, all that kind of stuff. Natasha, that's the conversation that you have right now. And I believe, quite frankly, that's the conversation you should have 4 times a year with every person in your database anyway. I mean, what we're doing is we're just getting back to the basics. The basics are never outdated. The basics are simple, and the basics work. And so that's where we're going right now. If they say we're staying at home because we're at risk, how do you say I can help you virtually? Well, so I think this is a question from Julie. Julie, that's a totally different conversation, and one that I don't know we have time to jump in on the call. If you go to the pivot page, Julie, the pivot shift ahead page, Julie, and click on announcements and pull Friday's call, and the 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central call I did on Friday talked about this for 20 minutes. So if you go pull that call, Julie, then that's going to help you. And if not, send me a private message on Instagram and I'll walk through it with you on what that conversation looks like, because I don't think we have time to cover it in the 2 or 3 minutes we have remaining.
Here's what I will do. I'll actually pull that video and send the link out to the entire group as I do in our Tuesday follow-up.
That's great. Yeah, that'll be really, really awesome for them. Thanks for doing that, because we talked about it for 20 minutes straight up. Okay, Peter says, James, I followed this plan, learned it from your daily call. Last Tuesday, called a friend to check in. Yesterday, signed a listing agreement. Come on. There you go, Peter. Peter gets the gold star of the day. Nice job. Mary Beth, my Instagram is James D. Shaw. I'll put it back in the chat. James D. Shaw. Hey, Milwaukee, did we help you out today? Is this what you were looking for?
One question I have.
Yeah, go ahead.
As the law of supply and demand is continuing to shift, it's a fair word, I guess. I've seen different strategies out there. I've experienced it. I jumped on one of the calls where a guy was talking about 17 offers in Indiana the other day.
Yeah, in Indiana.
Where you were saying, you know, would you normally get 17 offers because there's such, like, we had low inventory, now we have extremely low inventory.
Right.
What are your thoughts on, obviously it's situational, but are you encouraging people who are on the fence right now to say, hey, there's no competition for you from a house to house perspective, or not no competition, but a lot less. And there are people buying houses right now.
Okay, Will, so let me answer your question. And I'm just, for time purposes, I'm going to interrupt you because I do have a meeting right behind you. I have to go to Cedar Rapids next. I want to respect them. And I think I know where you're going. So what you're talking about is the people who are waiting, the people who are on the fence. Do we need to tell them that really right now is the time to be on the market?
Yes.
Okay, so the answer to that question depends on 2 things. Their motivation and their situation. So if here's what happens, and again, this is going to go back to the Friday call that's going to get sent out to you. There is a segment of the population, a big segment of the population, who would like to either buy or sell right now who said they want to wait this out. And the problem with waiting this out is there is no end in sight to this, quite frankly. I mean, waiting this out could be a couple of years. So we have to go back to motivation and situation. If their motivation and situation is one that in a normal market they would be on right now, then they should probably go on. If their motivation and situation is one that now is not the best time for them, then they probably shouldn't go on. You know, the other thing that I think you've got to consider too was when I say motivation, and what was the other word, Will?
Situation.
Right. What's their health situation? And if their health situation says they should not be on the market, then they probably shouldn't be on the market. I don't want you to pressure them to be on. What we're going to see starting now, there's 3 states that have already talked about their plan to reopen. Georgia, Tennessee, and add Ohio to the list. Okay, so now I think Wisconsin is in this group of Midwestern states that are going to kind of all follow the same plan, right? That includes Illinois and Indiana. And is Michigan on that list or no?
Yeah.
Yes. So I don't think Ohio is part of that group. So see, you have, and not to get too political, you have 2 governments there in Illinois and Michigan that are going to be really slow to open back up. And if you've all agreed to kind of do this together, you're going to be slower to open back up. So I think what you have to do is take someone's health situation into consideration there. Otherwise, if the motivation was they're having a baby and the baby's due in July and they want a bigger house for the baby, then should they be on the market right now?
Well, certainly.
Yeah, they should. And we've got to talk to them. I'll wrap up with this and then I have to go to Cedar Rapids or they're going to get frustrated. I think what happens in a situation like this is that there's fear and uncertainty out there right now. And whenever we have fear and uncertainty, people tend to make decisions based on emotion, not decisions based on fact, data, or logic. And our responsibility is to get them out of emotion and get them into fact, data, and logic. That's what we've got to do. And so their motivation and their situation will determine that. All right, Milwaukee, best of luck to you. Thanks for having me on. James D. Shaw. I want the NBA season to start back up because I really want the Bucks to win. I'm from a small town. I'm from a small market. I grew up in Indianapolis. I want the small teams to win. And then I want the Brewers to lose 160 games. Okay. Thanks for having me on, everybody. Talk to you later.
Thank you, James. Appreciate you. Cool. All right, guys. I am going to jump back in and give you some market level insights. But I just wanted to kind of put a bow on that conversation. I took some really great notes from that I will recap to our group in our Tuesday team meeting and follow up. And I will also make sure that we provide to you pages 54 through 57 of the Shift book so you can review the lead generation sources that he was referring to. But it was so, he was spot on there at the end when he said fear and uncertainty leads people to react with emotion. And we have to approach this business with facts, data, and logic and be the sounding board for your clients personally and professionally. So I'm here now to help provide some of that data and logic for you. And what I would say is, as I keep digging into these numbers analytically and helping us try and tell a story and look for the trends within the business, quite frankly, a lot of these stories or what I look into is from feedback that I receive from you. So if there are things that you want me to dig into, feel free to shoot me a text or shoot me an email or get a hold of me because you'll see this week, a lot of this feedback or a lot of what we're looking into is based on what you're telling me you need. Right? So whatever it is that you need, we'll be happy to jump into it. So I'm going to start with some good news. And the good news here is that showing activities across buyers, right? In the US, it's improving. It's down 44%. Last week, it was down 65%. In Wisconsin, it's only down 15%. Last week, it was down 45%. What is this telling us? If you look here on the far right, it is improving. Now, the blue line is 2019 weekly average. You're seeing a decline last year because this is the Easter overlap. So you have some spring break and Easter of what we're overlapping. But from a 2020 perspective, I love to see the trend line starting to move back in the other direction. What is this telling me? Last week, buyers were beginning to get a little bit restless and they were starting to go out and see more homes. Great news for us to try and pick up activity. So
Charlie, can I ask you one quick question?
Yeah.
Can you just review what were the showings in the U.S. last week? This week was down 44. What was last week?
Down 65%.
Thank you.
In Wisconsin, last week was down 45%. This most recent week, they were down 15%. So really, really significant improvement across buyer activity. Cool. Now, as I've talked about, I look at this data in terms of pre-COVID impact. So that's an 8-week window, trend window from January 27th to March 22nd. And then we look at the COVID impact, which is now going on a 4-week window from March 23rd through Sunday, April 19th. So this is as of this most recent Sunday. And here you'll see I'm going to share with you the data a little bit differently to try and break it down by price point. So looking at the total market overall, what you'll see first here from just a price point perspective on medium price, and again, as a reminder, this is across the 5-county metro area across southeastern Wisconsin. Just for perspective, I know some of the Lake Country folks asked last week how this impacts specifically Waukesha County, and we ran the numbers side by side, and the trends are identical. There was zero material difference between Waukesha County singly and the 5-county metro area. So for these purposes, I'm going to continue using the 5-county metro data because it's indicative to what's going on within the marketplace. So when you look at the median for sale, median price point for the for sale inventory across the total market, very similar story that we've seen. COVID has had zero impact on pricing. This is simply Econ 101. As supply tightens and demand increases, what happens? There's more competition and prices increase. So that's good news. The concern here is that the average number of total inventory has remained somewhat stagnant, only down slightly. However, yet, when you look at new inventory units that are coming to the marketplace, down 13%, it's a little concerning as that continues, because here's why. Instead of looking at sales absorption, which I realized was kind of a difficult metric for people to understand, I just looked at days on market, right? And what you see here across the total market of all price points is, if you think back to 2019, we thought 2019, well, nationally 2019 was the best year ever in residential home sales. We weren't quite sure that you could ever beat it. Well, here's the problem. You have 2 major factors at play. Homes now are selling 14% faster than they did in March of last year, right? And we're also seeing a trend of 13% newer units coming to the marketplace. So keep that in the back of your head, because I'll touch on that in a second. Now, here's what I did. I looked at 3 different segments. So the first segment I looked at was homes that were less than $350,000 on the marketplace, right? Here's something very interesting to note, and I think especially for many of the luxury teams, you should pay attention here to this stat. Homes that are less than $350,000 represent 69% of the total for sale market inventory. On top of that, they are representing 74% of the new units coming to the marketplace. This market is shifting to a below 350 marketplace. Keep that in the back of your mind. Okay. When we look at this marketplace, there was no material change as it relates to the for sale inventory. So homes that are coming on the marketplace are essentially coming on the marketplace as they always were. So COVID has not had an impact there. And then when you look at the median price point of those that are going under contract, what this is telling me is, quite frankly, we've seen an 8% increase versus the trend. This is just because there's more competition in the marketplace as inventory continues to dwindle. So if you have buyers within this price point, you have to help mentally prepare them that this price point is only going to get more competitive, which is driving prices up. And if you have someone that wants to list within this price point, they should have zero concern. Again, understanding their motivation and situation, but just from a pricing perspective, very, very healthy time to sell a home in a home that's under 350. When you look at new inventory units coming to the marketplace, right, down 25%, even though it's 74% of the total new units coming to the marketplace. And the days on market are selling 16% faster than they were last year during this time. So when you compare 19 to 20, homes are selling faster now, and competition is only going to get more fierce. Next, I looked at homes between 350 and 700K. Okay, here's a little stat for you. Homes between this price point represent 22% of the total for sale market inventory, with 23% of the new units coming to the marketplace. So from a pricing perspective, a little bit of an interesting tale here is we've seen a slight drop in terms of median price point of the for sale homes and homes under contract. Prices here are being impacted slightly because there's a little bit more inventory now in the COVID impact versus pre-COVID impact, right? So this is the one segment where we're actually seeing a little bit more inventory on the market, which is actually relieving some of the competition from a price standpoint. Yet, if you look at under contract down 3%, it's not totally concerning. And then again, when you're looking at days on market, homes are selling faster this year than they were last year. So if I had a seller who is in this price point, I would look at it and say, guys, really, materially, not a major impact here on price. It's pretty stable. It's remained pretty consistent. We're already in a tight market. There are fewer homes coming to the marketplace, and they're selling faster. Should course correct some of the medium price point trends that we're seeing as just demand outmeets supply. Cool. And then I looked at homes over 700K. And if you are a luxury listing agent or have luxury buyers, you need to pay attention to this slide because this is going to materially impact your business. And here's why. Homes more than 700K across southeastern Wisconsin only make up 9% of the total market. Again, 700 plus. They're only 2.7% of the new units coming to the marketplace. And these homes sell 109% slower than the marketplace. Okay, so if you're thinking about planning your business and what does this look like and where are you lead generating, you need to be, taking these facts into consideration. So good news is within the luxury market, there has been no material impact on price. So again, if you have a buyer or you have a seller, if I'm talking to the buyers within the luxury market, I'd say, hey, listen, you're not going to get a deal. COVID really hasn't had an impact on a pricing perspective within this marketplace. And if you're a seller, we're seeing the same trends we saw pre-COVID to what's going on right now within the COVID impact on the marketplace. Similar, nothing changes there. However, when you look at total inventory on the market, over the last 4 weeks, there have only been 549 homes per week on average in the 700 plus price point. And if you look at new inventory units, we're only seeing on average over the last 4 weeks, 13 new units a week in the luxury price point. That's a reduction of 54%. And then when you look at days on market, in March of 2020, homes were selling 27% slower than March of 2019. So my point to this within the luxury marketplace is this is really, from a macroeconomic standpoint, you're not seeing a major material difference in terms of pricing within the marketplace. It's just people are delaying both purchase decision and selling decision across the luxury market. So cool. Now I just wanted to provide to you what I consider the grocery store script. So what is going on in the market, right? From a pricing perspective, COVID has had no material impact on pricing trends. It's just simply Econ 101, supply and demand. Inventory was and is tight. Demand remains high, and there's a lot of competition for homes in Milwaukee. The main factor on stable, slight appreciation values across all price points is the simple supply and demand conversation, right? When you look at rate of sale, good news is we're starting to see buyer showing activity is beginning to rebound, but as people are getting a little bit restless, yet people are still delaying their selling decisions, right? we're seeing less inventory come to the marketplace. So how do you break this down by price point? Here's what you need to know. Homes that are below 700,000 across southeastern Wisconsin make up 89% of the total marketplace, right? They're selling 17% faster than they did in 2019. And an already tight inventory market is only getting tighter. Homes are going under contract is outpacing new inventory to the market. So this is my one major word of caution for you as you're talking through to your database or people at the grocery store or whoever you're having conversations with, is this is going to lead to major pressure on the system in the next 90 days because we have a wildly competitive market. And if inventory doesn't rebound quickly to match demand in terms of rate of sale and what's going on, you're going to see even historic lows of inventory get even lower with demand continuing to rise is only going to create more competition in the price points below 700,000. Again, 89% of the market. Then when you look at above 700K, it's 9% of the total market. The luxury market has come to a halt and they're selling 27% slower. When you look at number of units going under contract weekly, get this, number of homes going under contract above 700K is in single digits. Last week, there were 8 homes that went under contract above 700K, and number of new inventory units coming to the market is low double digits. Last week, it was 13 new listings came on the market above 700K. So I thought it was a little bit of a different spin for you to provide you some data and some logic as to what's going on in the marketplace so you can really segment the conversation based on where your buyers and sellers fit within the 3 different profiles we described. So I will be sending all of this information out to the group here this afternoon, and Diana will be doing the same out to the Lake Country group. Cool? Awesome. I am now actually going to jump over, and Brian Clute is going to give us some industry insights into what is going on in the mortgage marketplace, is because there is lots of stuff going on. Brian Clute.
Hey. You
All
guys
right.
here?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Let's see, make sure we got your, can you see that slide?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So thanks, guys. I got a lot of things to cover today, and I want to, but here's the thing. I want to make sure that I'm doing a couple of really key things today. Number one is I want to give you guys an education about what's happening in the market. And you know, I typically don't get too deep into the ins and outs of the way that the mortgage market is structured, but it's really, really important. You guys are going to see why. You already feel it right now. You're going to be able to understand it, but there's a specific action item that we need to take that's going to help everybody. So let's try that again. There we go. So as we talked about, as Charlie mentioned, you know, what's going on right now? Well, you know, the one thing that I can tell you guys that everybody that I've talked to in the industry, whether it's a lender or a real estate agent, is saying, guys, we're feeling a lot of uncertainty right now in the market. You know, we're hearing stories about lenders that are cutting off jumbo products. We're hearing about some lenders that are literally stopping taking applications for FHA loans, for bond loans. And so what I want to do is I just want to give you guys a story, and I'm going to do my best to explain how the mortgage market works, and I think you'll get the point on all this. So, you know, when a mortgage company, whether it's Chase or whether it's Fairway Mortgage, when we originate a mortgage, and this is one of those things that's really not something that the public truly understands. So it's super important that we get into the details on it. So when we originate a mortgage, that mortgage is sold off to what's called the secondary market. You guys have heard of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Ginnie Mae. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are the conforming GSEs, they're government entities. So when people are making payments, they're actually paying what's called the servicer of that mortgage. So the biggest thing that most people don't really understand is if they're making if they're cutting a check every month and they're making that mortgage payment to Wells Fargo or to Chase, it's not Wells Fargo or Chase that actually owns that mortgage. They are simply the servicer on that mortgage, and they have a contractual agreement with Fannie Mae to service that mortgage in exchange for a fee. So one of the things that's happened recently, and you guys may have, I think everybody's heard of the CARES Act, right? And one of the provisions of the CARES Act says that homeowners are able to enter into a forbearance agreement with their servicer. And so simply put, the forbearance agreement says, hey, we're willing to allow you as the homeowners to skip a payment up to 6 months. And then in some cases, it talks about actually going out to a 12-month period. Here's the problem. While that's incredibly helpful for the borrowers, there's a contractual obligation on the part of the servicer of that mortgage to basically pay the end investor for that mortgage. So if you put it into different terms, think about it this way. If you're a real estate investor, you own the asset. You may hire a property management company to service that property. They're taking applications. They're vetting the prospective renters. They're taking the calls. They're basically collecting the rent checks from the renters every single month, and then they're forwarding on to you as the investor. Well, in our market, that would be allowing the buyers to go into forbearance is akin to you as the property owner getting a call basically saying, hey, good news, the federal government has just established a provision that says the renters don't have to make payments for the next 6 months. However, you as the property management company are still obligated and required to forward payment to the real estate investor. So if you think about that for a minute, it's kind of crazy. So one of the challenges that we've got, and one of the big things that we're really pushing for in this industry right now is if we get this, we could literally see all non-bank mortgage servicing companies go out of business. And so, to put that into perspective right now, the projections say that if we had up to 25% of homeowners in this country opt in for forbearance, and here's one of the keys, by the way, there's no obligation to prove that there has been any financial hardship whatsoever on the part of the homeowner. So basically, if you put a request in to your servicer for forbearance, the chances are probably pretty good you're going to get that. So if we looked at it and said 25% of the people in the country would opt into forbearance, we're calculating the cost of that to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $70 to $100 billion worth of monies that, again, the servicers can't collect from the homeowners, but are then legally obligated to pay to the investors. Now, to put that into perspective as well, the mortgage servicing industry last year generated about $10 billion in total profits. So if we've got between 70 and $110 billion in funds that could be impacted from an industry that made $10 billion, you can see pretty quick that the math just isn't going to add up. And that's assuming that we get 25% of the people that go into forbearance, and that's also assuming that we only go 6 months into this thing. So the projections are saying that we could more realistically get somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 to $200 billion. Now, what's really interesting is, yep.
Fine. What does this mean for the agent or their buyers?
Absolutely. So guys, the challenge becomes this. If we end up not having what's called a liquidity facility put in place, which is basically funds to be able to make the servicers whole, and we're already starting to see it happen, and that is investors are looking at this saying, we cannot afford to give a loan out to somebody who is going to be at risk for forbearance. So you're starting to see servicers change. Let me give you an example. Chase just came out recently and said that their channel is only going to give mortgages out to buyers that have a 700 credit score and 20% down. That would be the trend line if we continue this. So, we're starting to see, before we went into this, we had a great economy. We had an incredible opportunity with first-time buyers. Guys, if we get to a point where we literally close this market out, I mean, first-time buyers are gone. I don't even think we could imagine a world where we'd have to have a 20% down payment and a 700 credit score. It's crazy. the simple fix is that we need to get the GSEs to establish what's called a funding, a liquidity facility. And so the question is, how do we do that? There's actually an action committee out there called the Mortgage and Action Alliance, and I've got a link to this. It's free to set up. It's something that anybody can join. You don't have to be a mortgage lender. We're encouraging everybody we know, whether they're a real estate agent, a title agent, anybody in this business, because guys, we will absolutely see this economy and this housing situation in big trouble if we don't get this resolved like now. And one of the challenges becomes that, you know, May 1st is rolling around pretty soon, and the number of people that are going into forbearance right now is I don't even have that number in front of me. But this isn't going to just impact your non-bank lenders. The banks out there, like Chase, has already established the same thing. Again, 20% down with a 700 credit score. So guys, we have to get this resolved, and it's got to happen fast.
So is the action item from this then, you need the group to kind of register on this link to help kind of lobby for this to happen, is what you're saying then?
Yeah, 100%. And I know that NAR just had a call last week, and they're behind it 100% as well. So yeah, the two action items would be, number one, join the Mortgage Action Alliance. And then secondly, we should all be writing letters to our congressman and the simple thing that we're asking for is just provide a liquidity facility in order to be able to cover the servicers, to be able to make calls on these investments. The crazy thing is right now, just kind of a quick side note, that Jeannie Mae, who handles overseas government loans, FHA, VA, USDA, Brian Montgomery, who's the head of HUD, everything has been set up perfectly. They've got clarity on forbearance. They've got a post-forbearance program put in place. They understand this. They put up liquidity facility. So if we've got an FHA loan, if we've got a VA loan, it's not an issue. We're literally talking about just conventional loans here with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Got it. Cool. All right. So I'll send the link out to the group. You know, I would say this, guys, right? The industry as a whole, it's not to alarm you, but it's to provide you real insight as to what you may be hearing or seeing within the train rags in terms of what was Chase's decision and what's the insight behind it, and how do we get ahead of it to help protect, as we said, 89% of the inventory is below below 700K. That's a lot of traditional conventional loans. And with lending restrictions that are already very tight, getting tighter is going to have a major impact for us. And so how we can help get ahead on that and start some of those lobbying efforts for liquidity would be perfect, and to educate your buyers. So cool. Awesome. I'm going to jump into education and events, and Amanda Schroeder, you're on, because I think you have a great little thing to share around structure and accountability you picked up from the Pivot group that I thought was totally worthy for the entire group. So Schroeder, what do you got?
Okay, can everybody hear me?
You're good.
Awesome. Okay. So just a quick bit, I thought this was a really great piece of information that I pulled off the Pivot Facebook group. So I didn't create this myself, but I really liked how this was set up. So I've talked about block scheduling before, and I think especially right now, I don't know about you, but the idea of blocking out every hour of my day seems way overwhelming, and especially for people who have kids at home and other obligations. So what I really liked about this graphic was that it shows 3 different zones to your day, or 3 different sections to your day. Do you have that, Charlie? I'm only seeing the part.
Yeah, sorry.
There we go. So what this breaks down is, in the top half there is the 3 parts of your day. So you have prepare, you have take action, and those 2 things happen before your lunch hour. And then you've got maintain. And I think the 3 really important key pieces that are behind that, those 3 key strategies, are your mindset and like setting yourself up at the beginning of the day, both mentally and physically. So it could be as simple as like taking a shower and putting on not pajamas, or it could be more, more involved, and it could include exercise, yoga, reading, meditation, journaling, all that kind of stuff is extremely important, I think, right now, especially. And then just planning is another part of that. That's towards the end of the day, and accountability, which I think is huge as well. So once you've got your morning set, that preparation can be as short as an hour in total from the time you wake up to 3 hours. The take action is really the meat and potatoes of your day, and that's your prospecting. And you heard it this morning, 40 contacts a day is the goal. Work with what makes sense for you in this season of COVID. So if it's not 40 contacts a day, do what you can, and know that it doesn't just have to be phone calls. It could be social media touches. It could be, video texts. It could be dropping off little something on people's doors. So there's a lot of different ways that you could take action and connect with people. The goal is to connect with people, make those connections, reach out to your sphere, connect with new people, do it in a safe way, obviously. And then maintain is, it's your lunch hour. It's giving yourself a clear moment where you're like taking a walk, reading, journaling, just like reset your mind for the rest of the day. If you're making those contacts, you should definitely be putting them in command. So you're tracking how that's going and what kind of return you're getting on that time investment. And then you also want to be sure that you are fitting in some appointments then. So virtual appointments, obviously, it's a little easier to squeeze those in one after the other, or at least one. I mean, start small. There's a lot going on right now, so don't beat yourself up. Give yourself some grace. This is not about powering through 100 things in a day. If you're really feeling the effects of this, or you're juggling a number of new things at the same time, like just give yourself some grace. Don't go crazy. But if you're gonna make a point to get an appointment a day or a week, like start small. This is when you would do it. And then make sure that you are giving yourself some accountability. And that's not beating yourself up. That's observing how your day went, taking some lessons from that, and then making a plan. So assessing and having a little accountability there. It could even be an accountability check-in with a partner or a group or a coach. That's a good time to do that at the end of the day, kind of see where you stand with things, how you're feeling, and then make your plan for tomorrow. Wrap it up, end your work day, and make your plan for tomorrow and lay it out. Make sure you know exactly what you're doing tomorrow, what's your most important thing, what tasks have to get done, and make sure you're prepared. If you do that, you're going to make way better use of your time, and it's going to give you the opportunity to be done with work for the day, whatever that time is for you, and move into being present with your family, your friends, your Zoom happy hours, whatever you're doing, even if it's just Netflix on the couch. Give yourself that time off, because it's so much easier right now. I don't know about you, but I find it very easy to sit on the couch until 10 p.m. doing stuff on my computer when I do need to still give myself that time off, even though I'm physically not moving from the office or an appointment to home. So I think having those 3 zones gives you that flexibility, kind of work with what works for you. But I think keeping in mind, make sure you're paying attention to your mindset, make sure you're planning, and make sure you've got accountability in place. If you stick to those 3 things, kind of fit them into these zones as best you can with what you have going on right now, I think you'll find that you will do quite well.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Guys, I'll send this out with the follow-up recap as well, so that you have just sort of maintain some structure and resemblance of routine. Awesome. And then here is what this looks like across the entire page. So, Kadi, what do we got coming up this week?
All right, good morning. We have a full week of stuff. So today after team meeting, we have launch coaching with Amanda. She's going to be going through the top 5. So we're going over buyer consultation today. So that's open to anyone who wants to join. Tech Tuesday, Lindsay Vranick at 1 o'clock is going to be going over campaigns in Command. So feel free to jump on that. Wednesday, tomorrow, we have another Coffee with a Capper series out of Southwest. We have Jeremy Reinders at 11 a.m. And then James Shaw talked a ton today about the budget models. So we have 1 o'clock, Scott Kloss is going over the MREA budget model. So he'll be doing that at 1. And then Thursday, we have productivity coaching with Janine and Connie. They're going to be going over the process of a transition, and they're going to have Renee Ferrara as their special guest from Focus Title. So be sure to not miss that, as well as bring your homework that you had for your CMA. Connie posted the address on Facebook as a reminder. And then Thursday, we also have contract training with Kimmy. She's going to be going over the home sale contingency and bump clause during contract training on Thursday. We have labs at Friday, and we have our second installment at noon of the admin mastermind. And this one's going to be taught by Sarah and Peggy from Falk, Reuben, Gallagher. So full week. If you need Zooms for any of this, it's on your daily emails as well as in the Facebook group. Otherwise, shoot me a text. I'm happy to get you any Zooms. I know there's a lot to keep track of. And then everything's pre-recorded. So don't forget that if you miss anything, you can check it out on the YouTube channel.
And then reminder, guys, Bold Pivot is coming up for $99. The 4-week class in the month of May begins May 5th, 2 hours, 2 days a week. So I'll make sure to send out the registration information for that. And Mandy, why don't you introduce who our guest speaker remotely is coming up?
Yes, so we have a special guest coming May 6th. I know a lot of you have crushes on Tommy Choi, so we got him to come to us. He's going to be going over his topic of from denial to acceptance. So really how to navigate our clients through these 5 stages of grief in a shifting market. So we're really excited to have him. He's coming to our group Wednesday, May 6th at 10 a.m.
Cool. And by the way, just as a heads up, it was Tommy Choi's birthday yesterday, if you want to shoot him a text. Cool. I'm going to let Maureen wrap us up and kind of share with some closing, concluding thoughts. So Maureen, you're on.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Couple of things. I love that get up and work out. Had I not worked out this morning, I'm not sure my brain would have been as sharp to follow what we learned today. A lot of information packed into 55 minutes. In my notes, my pen was flying. But I just want to wrap up with 2 things that I listened to this morning from James Shaw's 7 a.m. call, the shift pivot he does every morning at 7 a.m. He said, this is a quote from page 34 of the Shift book. What happens first is equal and without choice. What happens next is unequal and determined by choice. Follow that up with something he said at the very end. Judge thyself on action, not intention. I find we can be, especially being at home, the level of accountability is a little lower. And our intentions are there, but are we really actually doing the action necessary to move us forward, personally and professionally? So I thought that was great. I encourage you guys to follow James. He's a great start to every day. And Brian, thank you for your time. Man, that was a lot of information. The word forbearance is relatively new in my vocabulary. I had to learn what it meant and get up to speed on it. So it's a good thing for you all to understand what that means. That's all I've got. You guys, thanks. Make it a great day. And thank you, Charlie and Mandy and Diana, for pulling together a great meeting.
Maureen, can you repeat those quotes?
Sure. Hold on 1 second. Actually, I will. I'll put them. Okay. What happened?
I'll get them in a follow-up, and we'll set them up.
In the follow-up. They were 2 excellent quotes. Okay. Have a great day, guys.
Have a great week.